Hey guys, Keith with Lightline Fishing. If you're going rod shopping, you need to watch this. Stay tuned. Alright guys, I know everybody's like, it's spawning season, I need to go get me a new rod. What should I buy? I've been seeing it online. Should I buy a medium action? Should I buy a heavy action? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? Here's a couple tips. The first thing that you need to know is figure out what your common favorite bait is. Do you like to throw a spinner bait? Do you like to throw swim baits, light crankbaits? Now, if you're doing that, you're going to go with the medium action. I did a video on rod and reel selection a couple months ago. You might want to check that out. But here's a recommendation that I want to make sure that you learn because I've watched tons of videos, and even the pros, they talk about, oh yeah, I like a medium heavy with a fast tip, and I like a medium action with a parabolical bend, and and it's like, oh, we do a 50-pound braid to a 12-pound leader. Rod makes a difference. I'm not pushing brands. I'm not brand specific. On the deck of my boat, I have at least 6 different brands of rods, from cheap to really expensive. But here's the thought. If you're going to go flipping and pitching and skipping and offshore fishing with a jig, with punching and flipping with a heavy weight, you're going a heavy action rod. But if you're going to use braid on any of them, whether you're using a medium action, a spin rod, I love using braid on a spinning rod. But the tip is stay away from the micro guides. Now I have a rod here. This is a Abu Garcia Revo. It's one of the fastest spinning rods out on the market. Great rod for putting braid on. You can cast this thing a mile, but it doesn't have the micro braids. If you look at it, it's got the regular guides on the inside. Now, to show you what a micro guide is, hand me that white rod right there. I've got a Lew's rod that has micro guides on it, which is this one. This is a Mach 1 Lew's. Now you see how small those guides are? They're super tiny. I mean, you literally have to really have good vision to run the line through it. And you can see the difference of them up close, like that. Now, braid will not come through. When you tie that leader on and you try to sling it out there, they get caught in them guides on the micro braids every time and will hang up. And if you're using a bait caster, expect to be blowing up all day long because you'll never get it through them micro guides. I made that mistake when I bought the most expensive rod and reel combo set that I've ever bought for the Bassmaster tournaments. It's right here. It's the St. Croix rod. I called St. Croix, told them what I was going to be doing, told them what type of fishing I was going to be doing, and they recommended the rod. And it was a 7.6 heavy for my flipping, and when I got there, it had micro guides. Well, I put the braid on there, tied my leader on, made the first cast with that DC SLX reel, blew up in my face. Next cast, blew up in my face. It's just constantly getting hung up in the end of them guides. So if you're going to run braid with a leader, stay away from micro guides. And it doesn't matter which rod you use. And like I said, I'm not a rod Pacific or a reel Pacific. I just pick up what I feel and what I like. I have some real inexpensive rod and reels that I really like and I use all the time. And I have some very high-end ones that, had I not had a sponsor, I would never own. So it's just giving you an idea. Same with, like with the braid. When you got micro guides, you just go strictly straight mono or straight fluorocarbon. That is the only way you're going to do it. Now, the reason that the pros always tell you I do a braid to a fluorocarbon leader is because I don't care how good you are. A lot of these pros like to edit their stuff when they blow it up, but I happen to have seen and fished with a few of them where they're blowing up just as much as you or I. Not maybe not as much as me, because I suck, but but they do blow their reels up. And Andrew Upshaw did one not too long ago. He showed himself blowing up a couple times throwing real light tackle on a bait caster. I am the worst when it comes to throwing anything under a 3/8 on a bait caster. I switch to the spinning rod. If it's swim bait, the little 1.5 crankbaits and the 1.0s, I have to use a spinning reel because they're just too light and I blow up the reel. I don't know how to do it. So I use a spinning reel. So, but the idea is with braid on a bait caster, you have half, at least half. I'll go as far as much as say 3/4 less blowups and backlashes with braid than you will with monofilament or fluorocarbon. It just doesn't get hung up and twist and do all the thing, and it spools and it stays nice. You don't get no kink in the line, the slinky effect. Same thing with these bait caster or open face spinning reels. When these are the worst for your line spinning. If you reel these up with braid, like 10 or 15 pound braid, and then just run a leader up to, you know, just before the reel, you can cast them a mile and they'll never twist on you, and you won't get that slinky in your line. And when you're working that, you know, jerk bait or that shaky head or that wacky rig, you can have that line straight and you can see it and feel the bites. So those are just some tips just on the rod and reels. Like I said, I don't care what you buy what you can afford. Now I'm going to give you some advice. A buddy of mine, more like a brother to me, that's passed away, gave me a very expensive reel. He said he paid almost $400 for that thing, and he fished it 3 or 4 times and gave it to me. He says, I wasted my money. So what do you mean? He said, I can't cast it. So he gave it to me. I brought it out here on the boat. I didn't think much of it. I put on a rod, started using it as one of my trolling setups for walleye and crappie, and it worked like a champ. But I rigged it up for bass and started throwing jigs with it, and I was like, man, for $400, this thing just, man, you can't cast it 20, 30 yards. What the heck? I adjusted it, watched videos, done everything I could to get that expensive reel to cast. I changed rods, I did everything. I even went as far as took it back to Bass Pro, exchanged it for a new one, thinking, I told him there's got to be something wrong with this thing, that you go to cast it and it goes 20 feet and drops. And he's like, well, have you adjusted the brakes? I said, dude, I've tried it. 2 on, 3 off, 4 on, all the different things. You know, I fished this thing for 3 months trying to get it to work. Could never get that thing to cast. Got a brand new one, exact same thing. So just because it costs $400 doesn't mean it's going to be a good reel. Find you a reel. One of my best reels, my favorite, is a cheap little $30 reel that I've got online. I'm not going to talk brands, but I just found it online through another YouTuber that was doing a test on them, and he was talking about he's caught stripers, catfish, all kinds. He's like, they're just cheap little reels, but they work good, and I have 2 of them. Bought 2 of them for $30 or $60 online, and they're bulletproof. We've got over 40-inch muskie on them. We've got 30-pound catfish on them. We've caught nice 4 or 5 pound bass on them. Never have a problem with these reels. They're super cheap and they work just as good as my $200 ones. I have $100 reels, you know, $39.99. Walmart has a real good reel for $39.99 that you can cast a mile and it's almost bulletproof. Buy what you can afford and what feels good in your hand. Take it out, use it, cast it, try it, save your receipt. If you don't like it, take it back. Try another one until you find that one that actually works for you. I've gone through several reels that I'm like, you know, they just don't work. Now your gear ratio. Back to the gear ratios. It's specific based on what you're doing. Crankbaiting, I've talked about that on the rod and reel selection. You want that low gear ratio in the 5 series or low 6s, so you're not wearing yourself out. If you're pitching and flipping, you want a fast reel so you can catch up to that line real quick. So anyways, these are just some tips that I wanted to share with you guys. Check it out. watch my rod and reel selection video. Please like, share. Hey guys, help me grow this channel. I want to start giving some tackle away from Bass Reaper. Bass Reaper Bait Company is a sponsor of mine. We're going to start giving away some of the mimic crawls, some of the sinister shads, things that I use on this boat out on this lake to catch bass, and as I posted, a lot of walleye. I caught 4 walleye the last trip on a sinister shad. Unbelievable. Trying for bass and catching big old muskie, or walleye. Had muskie on the brain. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Take somebody fishing, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.